Welcome back to our next section in the Synoptic Gospels. Today we will talk about the Gospel of Luke. The symbol of Luke is the ox figure. Today I'm taking you to my first church, St. Luke's Lutheran Church in Brooklyn, New York, where I started as a young pastor over 30 years ago. Sadly, the church is now closed, as you can see, with a big fence in front of it. About 18 years after I left the congregation had dwindled down to the point that it could no longer support itself. Of course, there's nothing significant about this building and the Gospel of Luke other than the name of the church. But I do remember that October 17th was always a special day for our church. In the church calendar, October 17th is St. Luke's Day. We celebrated it as the day of our church anniversary. And we often celebrated this day with a healing service. Why a healing service? Well, in the tradition of the church, it is the day of St. Luke, the apostle and physician. So then, who is Luke? According to Philemon 24, Colossians chapter 4 verse 14, and 2 Timothy 4:11, Luke is one of Paul's trusted co-workers in Paul's mission. Colossians mentions that Luke is a physician, hence our celebration of the healing service on October 17th. Scholars have often speculated whether Paul had some kind of an illness that needed attention every now and then. In 2 Corinthians 12:7, Paul writes, "Therefore, to keep me from being too elated, a thorn was given me in the flesh, a messenger of Satan to torment me, to keep me from being too elated." We don't have any other information about that, but most scholars speculate that Luke, as the physician, was an important co-worker of Paul not only in the gospel, but also in attending to Paul's thorn in the flesh. That Luke is the author of both the Gospel of Luke and the Acts of the Apostles is evidenced by the close connection to each other. In the beginning of the Gospel, Luke addresses someone by the name of Theophilus, Luke 1:3, and then tells the purpose for writing the Gospel. In Acts, the same Theophilus is mentioned in Acts chapter 1 verse 1. In the first book, Theophilus, I wrote about all that Jesus did and taught from the beginning. Further confirmation for Luke being the companion of Paul and the author of the Gospel and the book of Acts is that large portions of Acts are written in the first person voice, when it is evident that Luke is part of the story. The vocabulary used in both works suggests that Luke is an educated person who is well versed in the Greek language. When then were the Gospel of Luke and the Acts of the Apostles written? The very beginning of the Gospel in Luke 1 verses 1 through 4 suggests that other people have already written about Jesus and that there are previous collections of the stories. He admits that he is not writing something totally new, but he indicates that he wants to write another orderly account to Theophilus so that he may know the truth. That is Theophilus. This suggests a new outlook on the story of Jesus from a number of eyewitnesses and servants of the Word through the lens of Luke. Who, though, is this Theophilus? There is really no identifiable person by that name to whom Luke could have written. Also, why would Luke put so much energy into writing a 2-volume work to just one person? It seems so much more likely to understand it from the translation of the name Theophilus. It is a combination of the Greek theos, meaning God, and philia, meaning friendship, love. The translation of Theophilus then is lover of God. The Gospel thus is written to anyone who loves God. Therefore, it is a book written to the entire church and those who are interested in converting to Christianity. Given the Gospel's close proximity to Matthew, they share about 2/3 of their material, and the fact that Luke 21 verses 1 through 22 describes the events of the First Jewish War and the destruction of the Temple in Jerusalem, we can safely say that Luke Acts was written after the year 70 CE. The reference to earthquakes might even refer to the events of 79 CE, when Mount Vesuvius erupted and buried the towns of Pompeii and Herculaneum within only a few hours. That was another terrifying event in Roman society, attested to by Pliny the Younger. But then, if Luke was a companion of Paul's, who lived at the time of Jesus and died around 63 CE, then Luke would be getting pretty old if the work is dated too late. If Luke was a young man, maybe younger than Paul, as Luke does not seem to know Jesus in person, if Luke was a young man at the time of his travel with Paul, then he would be in his 50s or 60s when he is writing the Gospel. Given that a dating around 75 to 80 CE is entirely possible. What is Luke Acts' character or message? Jesus is the new Abraham. He is the fulfillment of the promise to the world. This theme passes through the entire Gospel. First, while Matthew's genealogy of Jesus begins with Abraham, Luke goes even further out to trace Jesus' family tree to Adam, Luke 3:23-38. So Jesus is not only sent to Israel, symbolized by Abraham, but to all of humanity, symbolized by Adam. Second, the fact that Luke wrote 2 volumes, The Life of Jesus and The Life of the Apostles, shows that Luke's message is not only for Israel, but for the entire world. And we see evidence of that in the Gospel already when Luke makes sure to mention the Samaritans and other non-Jewish characters. Samaritans were shunned by the Jews because in Jewish history they were seen to have fallen off the promise to Israel. But Luke mentions them twice. The story of the Good Samaritan in Luke 10:30-37 and the story of the 10 lepers, Luke 17:11-19. And these stories we can only find in Luke. In Acts, it is obvious that the gospel does not stay in Israel, but it reaches the rest of the world. Third, Luke Acts is also very concerned for the poor. In Luke, the message of the birth of Jesus goes to the poorest of the poor first, the shepherds in the field, Luke 2, verse 8-20. Luke also points out that Mary and Joseph were poor. While in Matthew, Joseph picks up Mary and the baby to flee to Egypt, Luke has them going to the temple 8 days after Jesus' birth to have him circumcised, as was expected of good practicing Jews. They are offering the appointed sacrifice, but are substituting the usual ram with 2 turtle doves, a permission given to those who could not afford a ram, Luke 2:21-24. In the Sermon on the Plain, Luke's equivalent to Matthew's Sermon on the Mount, Luke specifically changes Matthew's version. In Matthew, Jesus says, "Blessed are the poor in spirit," Matthew 5:3. Luke drops the word "in spirit" and says straight out, "Blessed are the poor," Luke 5:20. There are many other places in Luke with a special concern for the poor. Fourth, Luke has a special concern for prayer. In Luke, Jesus prays more often than in any other gospel. And here are a few characteristics of Luke's gospel. First, Even though Luke is a bit shorter than Matthew, Luke has only 24 chapters compared to the 28 in Matthew. It ends up much longer when connected with the additional 28 chapters of the book of Acts. Second, both the beginning and the end of Luke, Acts, make a connection between the two books. In the beginning, they both connect through the address to Theophilus. In the end of Luke, we hear the story of Jesus' ascension into heaven, Luke 24:50 through 53. And then the book of Acts picks up the story of the ascension at the beginning in Acts 1:10 through 11. And now you can watch the 2 Bible Project videos linked in here on the Gospel of Luke. In the following lesson, the one that's due after this one, we will take a closer look at the book of Acts itself, or the Acts of the Apostles, as it is also often called. And now enjoy watching the Bible Project videos. See you later.